Howdy, welcome back. I'm Steven and this is FWP Reviews. Yes, we're in a different location today. This will unfortunately be the case for a little while. Thank you, Hurricane Ida. After years in the making, we have finally received the Asian-led superhero movie we deserve in Shang-Chi. It's a shame that it took this long, but it's here now and it's taking the world by storm. Let's take a deeper look at Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This movie centers around a mysterious martial art master who thought he had left his past behind. When his past and family resurface, he must overcome several obstacles and try to get to a world he never imagined was real. This movie seems to be all people talking about movies online can talk about right now. It's shattering Labor Day box office records. So let's see what all the hype is about, and I'll take a look at some of my critiques of the movie as well. Without further stalling, here's my spoiler review for Shang-Chi. I will lead with the most obvious fact about this movie is that it has an incredible cultural importance and that cannot be understated. It's incredible to finally see Hollywood doing the bare minimum and allowing more diverse casts to take leads in movies. These casts continue to prove bigots wrong by raking in money, achieving massive critical success, and so much more. It amazes me how stellar this cast is. Simu Liu is the latest in a long line of charismatic Marvel leads, and I'm incredibly excited to see him in any more properties he's in. He gives a great performance that adds even more to this unique and interesting character. I personally have been a longtime fan of Awkwafina. This movie features her in a comedic relief role. She knocks it out of the park and makes me crack up on almost every occasion. I hope to see more in-depth and serious roles taken on by her because I believe she's an incredible performer, but I also hope to keep seeing her strong charisma and humor put on display. Tony Leung plays the villain, and boy is he cool. His performance is the highlight of the character. This character's motivation and styles fit perfectly into this well-known MCU box. This is mostly unfortunate, but fortunately the performance is stellar. In his performance, he manages to push past this box he's put into and make the performance something special. The rest of the cast does a great job, but I would be here all day talking about just the characters, but I would like to talk about more in the movie, so let's get moving. The action is obviously one of the defining features of this movie. As has become the staple with these MCU movies, I will take a look at the first two acts first and comment on my thoughts on the befuddling third act in a moment. The first two acts are damn exhilarating. The stunts, the fight scenes, the music, and everything else really feels to be in the pocket for this movie. I found myself bracing for the big hits and smiling and laughing like an idiot at all of the other cool stuff on screen. This movie doesn't waste a lot of time, it lets you have it with the fun, action, and entertainment. In the first two acts, it never trades this fun for technical quality either. The soundtrack is obviously one of the noteworthy features of this movie. I wouldn't rank it as the top soundtrack in all of the MCU, but it's definitely up there and it's a nice break from the traditional movie score that we've come to know. I hope it ages well and I imagine it will, unlike some other comic book movies that might have used popular music that didn't age well. Suicide Squad. I digress. The jokes and heart that are traditional for the MCU can be seen prevalently throughout this movie. This movie manages to make and let you laugh at its absurdities at most points. It doesn't treat the movie like it's The Godfather, obviously, but it manages to make it feel entertaining and not totally dumbed down. This movie also manages to subtly tie into the MCU at large while also letting the story play out on its own terms. This is impressive to me because at a few hands in the recent MCU, we've seen the larger stories start to hinder the smaller stories. I particularly enjoyed the post-credit scene with Captain Marvel, Wong, and Bruce all returning, but I also enjoyed the scene with Abomination, and I hope that he is going to be making a return in Thunderbolts. Maybe. In terms of gripes about this movie, I do have a few. The sort of perfect MCU formula / box is really prevalent in this movie. The longer this universe has gone on, the larger and more apparent this box has become. I want more risk in these movies, but it just doesn't feel like we can ever get that step to be taken. I am mostly sure that a large part of why I am enjoying the MCU shows so much is not only because it's some of the best content they've put out, but because it is such a change of pace and change of formula for the MCU. We see a lot of familiar elements which helps it feel grounded in this universe, but it's also an entirely different style of storytelling and it is so entertaining. Additionally, some of the CGI in the third act was mind-bogglingly bad. Similar to Black Widow just last July, I was very concerned with some of the overall quality of CGI in the third act. Some shots look technically sound and incredible, mostly pertaining to the dragon. However, the big climactic battle between the father and son with the 10 rings just looked kind of crap for the most part. It could have been something so cool and so epic, but there were just so many times where I was like, that kind of looks bad. And oh, that looks really bad. The climax of the movie just felt let down by that, similar to how I felt in Black Panther and Black Widow alike. It blows my mind that some of these movies are starting to look worse than movies that came out 6 to 7 years ago, but I've got a couple of theories. Time to put on our tinfoil hats and give it a go. My first theory is lasting COVID concerns. You could pencil a lot of this down to short staff working from home, things like that, etc. However, they said that Black Widow, the movie, was completed before the pandemic began, and they locked it in a vault and didn't touch it until they released it. Similarly, I think that a lot of Shang-Chi fell into that category where it was just pushed back so far that we're not really getting a lot of the editing done now that was back then. My other running theory is that their entire budget that can be spared is being dumped into Eternals. We've been hearing a lot of whisperings that the Eternals could be the best thing since sliced bread. With Chloe Zhao directing, there's whispers that from the press screenings that they could be gearing up for a Best Picture run with this movie. So my theory is maybe they wanted to make sure they got the CGI spot on for once. If this is the case, even if this isn't the case, the CGI for Eternals better be immaculate if they're gearing up for a Best Picture run. I will not and cannot champion an MCU movie for Best Picture if it looks like a PS2 game for even 5 minutes. This may just be me worrying constantly about Eternals, but that's my tinfoil hat speech for the day. Let's move on to the next point. I don't have a lot more in terms of direct thoughts for the movie. It falls middle of the pack for me, but I did enjoy it a lot. Some things took me out of the experience, but as a whole it was incredibly worthwhile. The most important part of this movie and most profound part of this movie was its cultural impact. Hopefully the usage of diversity in cast and widespread talents becomes more than just we're doing this because it's the bare minimum we can do, and it can become something that's more part of the norm because it's so clear that the talent is there and that upper board execs are the ones that are holding us back from seeing greatness unfold on screen. I've been doing a fun little thing in all of my Marvel video reviews where I take a look forward because there's so much history of the MCU, but it just keeps chugging. So I'm going to take a look at a few things that stand out from this movie and maybe related talks about what is exciting me for the future. Obviously, with this movie, one of the big talking points is the first post-credit scene. I've already touched on it, but let's get a little more into it. It's cool because we're basically getting to see our character inducted to the Avengers already because he's damn awesome and they know that he needs that role on the team. This also surely means we will see him in the next team-up movie, whenever that comes. This scene also brings up important questions and launches us into the future by pointing out that the rings are kind of a weird thing and nobody really has any history on them. Perhaps they're related to time travel. They're from the future. Kang and Loki, I'm looking at you. Hopefully there's something cool there and it's not just a tease for the sake of us seeing him be a part of this group. It's funny to see how Marvel can so effortlessly, retroactively retract their sins and make it seem somewhat intelligible, even though we all know it's just a facade. But after 10 years, we get to see that they finally fix this era, and then they're like, oh, 10 rings are over because their leader's dead. But it's not, so I'm excited to see where they take that in the future. Additionally, dragons are here. No direct references to Fin Fang Foom were referenced that I could see, but if I die before I see Fin Fang Foom in the MCU, I will cry. With that, let's wrap this video up. Shang-Chi brought me incredible joy despite some larger shortcomings for me. I'm incredibly excited for the representation it brings and the talent it's showcasing, and I can't wait to see more of this in the future. Next week, we'll be taking a look at one of my all-time favorites, Booksmart. This will be followed up by rounding off the month of September with the September Shrektacular. You heard that right, we're taking a look at Shrek. Until next time, follow my Instagram at FWBPReviews100 for daily written reviews about the newest movies. With that, this is FWP Reviews signing off. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you all in the next one.